ourselves because we didn't run in a primary. So we didn't get all exposure all through the spring. And therefore, despite the fact that you paid for those primaries, you don't know who we are. So I'm going to continue to do the same thing. I grew up in poverty. The kids we're talking about is the life I led. I walked to school at Sept Grammar by myself before I was 5. Every day I went with a minced ham sandwich and white bread. That was my diet. So when we talk about kids in poverty and generational poverty, it is very deeply personal to me. I managed to climb my way out and succeed as a small businessman and a writer and other things. But that is a steep hill for most kids. In my family, we had a broken family with alcohol problems. My mother worked 3 jobs, hardly ever there. So I tell you this because that's what guides me every day. I still have a picture on my desk of me in the 1st grade because I never want to forget that kid. And I want to find every possible way we can to make sure that that kid and the tens of thousands of kids like that kid can make it in Maine. And so the short-term answer, yes, we have to do more as a state, more as a society to focus on early childhood development. There's no question about that. I did a wonderful tour in Waterville a couple of weeks ago of a new program that's taking kids from 2 weeks old all the way into public school. And look, with 70% of households, 2 working parents, we got to do some things differently than we've done. I will say again, though, that we have so many needs across the state. And you've heard some of them tonight. They all cost a lot of money. And unless and until we grow in new prosperity, we will not have the money to do everything that's being promised in these venues. And believe me, I've been through a lot of them now. Everything is promised. We have to ask where the money comes from. It only comes from a growing economy and the other thing that's important to me, a streamlined, modernized government. Other than that, there's no way to fund all the needs we have, and the needs will grow as we continue to get older.
Thank you. Sean?
Thank you. Yeah, you heard, we're going to hear a little bit more personal story. We all have them, everyone here, other folks as well. But the best way out of poverty is to find something that you're passionate about through employment. Find work that isn't really work, it's a labor of love, something that you really enjoy doing. You think about my past, similar, to Terry and Al's in some ways, but I looked at it as, again, a perfect opportunity. At 16, it's pretty much calling the shots, and I'm not saying we need that much unbridled freedom exception, but how many folks here started working at 15 and younger? That's where the work ethic developed. We talk about cognitive ability, cognitive development, no question, it happens 0 to 5, that range, but the most formative years that we have in our lives are our teenage years. And we've blocked our teenagers out of employment opportunities in our local communities. And we have to allow our teenagers to rejoin the employment opportunities within our communities. As your next governor, I will pledge to give the young people opportunities like I had, like you had, to go out there and find something that you love to do. And I'm not talking about the family or the individual that has a good family unit, that has a career track, a college track, they're taking band, extracurricular activities, sports. I'm talking about that 35 or 40% of that young student population that doesn't have those opportunities. We've got to give them something productive and meaningful to do, because there's 3 pillars. Okay, you've got school, it's very important. You've got home, critical. But you need the local community employment opportunities to go out there and learn discipline, learn responsibility, learn financial literacy. All of those things are associated with employment. You think about my past. Could have gone any way, right? That at-risk kid. Well, that didn't stop with our generation. Those at-risk kids are in our school populations right now as we speak. And when I was 17, I was a small business owner and a taxpayer and a mortgage holder before I was old enough to even vote. And that same spirit, human spirit, is alive in every teenager in our system today. We have to open up the doors of opportunity for them like we got to experience back in the 70s. And I will pledge to do that because I believe the brilliance of problem solving is to solve the one problem that solves 5 or 6 problems. In order to break this cycle of poverty, there's only one way, I'm convinced of it, is through finding gainful employment, something you're passionate about doing, and you can go out there and lead a great quality life and succeed.
Thank you very much.
I had to get you to stand up once, just.
That's the end of our prepared questions, and we're now going to take, I see my spotter, bringing our questions from the audience. Tim Rucker, it's your turn. And I do think we have time for 2. Are you folks game for 2?
Oh, yeah, we're exhausted. We're just getting warmed up there. It's a lot.
Okay, we have 2 minutes per person on this question, and we will go back to our original order. Terry Hayes first, Alan Karen second, Sean Moody third, Janet Mills fourth. Here's the question. Given that we are in the midst of great need for mental health and human services programs and services for our citizens, current providers of these services rely predominantly on state funding and struggle to match wages or other industries. How would you support our mental health and human service organizations to attract and retain talent in such a competitive economy? And I'll read the question each time in case, or summarize in case you, because I know you had a chance to prepare for the other ones. Terry.
I'm just finishing writing it down. I'm an old brain. Still goes through my brain and out my hand. It helps a lot. How would I help attract and retain talent?
How would you support our mental health and human service organizations to attract and retain talent in such a competitive economy?
Thank you. So I would start by expanding Medicaid. It's something that we need to do. We need to use both federal resources and state resources, the state match money. That will help us do this. But while we're expanding Medicaid, what we're doing is we're providing access to 70,000 to 80,000 more Mainers to a system that's out of whack. Right now, the costs are here and the reimbursement rates are here. While we expand Medicaid, we have got to do this. We may not get them even, but we've got to bring the costs down, we've got to bring the reimbursement rates up. And if we don't do that, we're not going to be able to pay for this program downstream. So the first part of the solution is going to involve working with providers, the provider network, to make sure that as we're opening up access to people who genuinely need it, these are our neighbors who need health care, that as we're doing that, we're solving the systemic problem, and we're going to need to work with the feds on it as well. If we just expand Medicaid and we don't attack this piece, we are not going to be able to continue providing coverage to that same population probably within 5 years or less, just because we won't have the money. So that's the challenge that we have. But I think that's at the top of the to-do list here, and the other piece has to do with attracting talent and growing our own. My husband is a mental health professional. My daughter is a mental health professional. You wonder how I got so bad, huh? With such good health. But truly, we've grown some talent within our own family. But it's a sacrifice to work in that field, but we need the help. So expanding Medicaid and doing it in a fiscally responsible way.
Thank you. Alan, mental health providers rely predominantly on state funding. How would you support our mental health and human service organizations to attract workforce?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to not insult your employees. And And what we've been doing in this state for the last 7 or 8 years is insulting our employees. And guess what? It doesn't make their job easier. It doesn't help retain good employees. It doesn't attract people. Now, this is part of a larger pattern of sending a signal to the country that Maine is a mess, that government's corrupt. And the one that kills me is that teachers are a dime a dozen, and that you're not welcome here. These are the signals we've been sending to the country for the last 7 or 8 years. It must stop, or we will decline further. So let's start with treating our state employees with respect and treating them as human beings and not insulting them. Start to imagine we were going to a restaurant together, and there was a sign on the window that said, "Come on in. We've had a few problems with food poisoning, and the employees stink, and they're rude. Find your own seat." Guess what would happen? Nobody would come in. Business would fail. So we talk about running government like a business. Let's run it like a business and work with our employees. This is, though, another one of the symptoms of a deeper problem. Healthcare, mental health, opioids, early childhood, senior care, all of these issues, after issues, we need to address them all. They all cost money. We better figure out how to grow more money, or we're just engaging in a back and forth where I tell you what you want to hear and you believe me, knowing it's not true. We can't keep doing that. So let's be honest with each other. We have growing needs. They're going to continue to grow if we don't fix this economy. And we simply do not have now, nor we will ever have, enough money to fix these problems.
Thank you. Sean, mental health providers rely on state funding. How will we continue to attract workforce in that area?
Well, here's where it gets interesting. I mentioned earlier that we are proudly the best place to work in Maine. The other component that I didn't mention was we took care of 20,000 Mainers last year alone. 20,000 that come to us when they're in need. And we have over a 97% customer satisfaction index that we track very closely. So you're taking care of the customers or the people in need, and you're taking care of your coworkers. Those are the two critical elements of any organization, whether it's EHHS, right, or in the nursing homes, whatever it may be. Again, a little personal side of my life. My mom, single parent, struggled financially and physically to raise the 3 of us. And she was hospitalized, okay? And she was gone for about a month, and I was kind of living through that. As she got older and as she aged, I became her legal medical guardian in 1994, which created a pathway for me to attend her appointments and get her on a stable track to lead a good quality life. So I will pledge to the Maine people to reconstruct a mental health system here in the state of Maine. And again, when I talk about root causes of so many challenges that we face, whether it's law enforcement dealing with it, our jails, our school systems, you know, nursing, I mean, we're all dealing with mental health. So you think about it, stable, you gotta be stable, and you gotta be sober. Those are the two critical elements, okay, providing someone a pathway to a good quality life. I'll tell you something else. My mom moved in an apartment in Portland, okay, and I stayed back at 16. When I was 22 years old, I had saved up enough money, worked 7 days a week. I bought my mom a home to move her back out to Gorham. And at that time, I was living in one room in a garage down back at Hannaford Brothers with a kerosene heater. So I know how to take care of people, and that's what Maine needs right now. Someone with a vision, with somebody that's bold, that's going to be adamant about taking care of our people. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Mental health providers rely predominantly on state funding. How do we continue to stay competitive?
Thank you. And as Terry said, one of the first steps is Medicaid expansion. We're turning away $500 million a year, federal money, but it's our money. Why not accept it? And yes, we do need to look at cost controls, and yes, we do need to look at expanding healthcare professions, our nursing professions and whatnot. But also, you know, the mental health area, that's personal to me too. I have a close family member who struggled with schizophrenia his entire life. He's near and dear to me, and he spent a year at what used to be called Anaheim, now it's called Riverview. I have a grandson who has autism, and he's aging out of the school system. And our family is struggling with what to do with him, because he'll never be fully employable. He won't be able to work at Moody's Collision Center, but we want him to be productive, and we want him to have a productive and happy life. And these are struggles more Maine families are facing every year. It's not an isolated problem. With respect to mental health agencies and human services organizations, one thing I won't do is change the contracts to fee for services, because that's not productive. That's not a business accountable way to run a business. The grant programs are what's working, with measures of accountability, with metrics. Mental health parity is something we passed when I was in the legislature, one of the first things we did. So insurance companies are required to provide mental health treatment, the same on par with what they do for physical, medical health, medical treatment. So we have some tools there. Look at the administrative costs of the organizations that we're funding, and make sure that more of our dollars are going directly into treatment, not administrative costs. But I do believe we can do mental health a lot better in Maine, especially for the children. Children's behavioral health is sorely lacking. When hospitals are turning kids back out of the emergency rooms because there's no place for them and no treatment available,
Thank you.
that's an urgent situation.
Thank you. So a lot of the questions that came in were very similar to others that we've already talked about. So we've tried to pick one that's completely new and different. And again, 2 minutes each. We're going to go in the reverse order from the last. This will be our last question. It's our bonus round, so to speak. And we'll go, Janet, we'll start with you as we did on the last question in the original list. Janet, Terry Hayes, Alan, Karen, Sean. Here's the question. Adult use cannabis is coming. Can each of you explain your position on adult use cannabis in Maine? We'll start with Janet.
Sure. Look, I thought that the initiative that was enacted by the people was poorly drafted, quite frankly, and I criticized it when it was on the ballot. 30 pages of small print, small font, you know, and sure enough, when it got enacted, then the legislature had to take it up, and they spent 7 months with a big committee drafting a 70-page bill to fix some of the problems with the 30-page referendum, and then that got vetoed, and then there was another committee, on and on. Look, here's my position on marijuana. I'm not opposed to adult use recreational marijuana. Not opposed to it at all. You got to do 3 things with marijuana, cannabis. Test it, track it, and tax it. That sounds pretty simple. Test it, track it, and tax it. Now the bigger questions are, do you support the bigger enterprises or keep the small producers alive with different tax structures? Do you favor the medical marijuana producers with different taxation structures versus the commercial? And those are all good policy issues that we can deal with in the legislature. But one thing I will do as governor on day 1 is to tell the departments to start writing the regulations that they're supposed to have written months ago. It's so important. We can't allow the underground economy to take over that business. We've got to regulate it responsibly for the health and safety of Maine's people and Maine's children. It's as simple as that.
Thank you. Terry, adult use cannabis. Can you explain your position on this issue in Maine, please?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Becky. I voted yes on the referendum question. I support adult recreational use of cannabis. I think that among the things that you folks are probably wrestling with is how to deal with it as an employer, particularly depending on the nature of the business that you have. How do we integrate adult use during free time for a substance that you test positive for some long times after you've used it? I don't have the answers to that, but I'm sensitive to dealing with that issue. I also think, and this probably won't surprise you, during my day job, I'm your state treasurer. So there's another challenge in the safety, a public safety issue with legal cannabis, and that's banking services. Because the federal government sees this as an illegal substance. And so if you're banking cannabis money, you are in fact laundering, okay? So the state's got to work out a way, and we're wrestling with this now, is how do we collect sales tax, how do we collect licensing fees, and working, because we have banking partners that we contract with, and they've been very clear. They're not going to risk their business license with the federal government by dealing with cannabis money. There are now some form of legal cannabis use in, I think, 48 different states. So this is coming like a wave, but the feds, it's a real bind. The public safety issue is generally an all-cash business. All cash businesses at the state level, when you're collecting money, means a lot of manpower, a lot of people, because you got to double up every time to check everything. So we're trying to work through the headaches of how to deal with that. So I can tell you, I feel your pain. I'm not sure how we're going to solve this, but we're working together and collecting ideas from across the country. We can figure this out in a way that's productive for Maine, and it's my intention to help us do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I grew up in the late 60s. We had a certain attitude about this issue. And the attitude was really, why do we spend so much time and money and resource and energy on this issue? And I've never heard a good answer to that question. So I think we're doing exactly what we should do, except we're about 30 years late. Now, it's a complicated issue. You've heard some of the complexity. You can't just flip a switch. There are a lot of potential problems, not the least of which is this industry, which looks like a cottage thing now, will consolidate over time.